Experience Podcast. I'm Dan Badabonker.
And I'm Kenton Larson.
Kenton, we're into the second week of classes.
Yeah.
How's it going so far?
I'm not exhausted yet, but that's week 3. How about you?
I'm doing well. I'm having a really good time.
Yeah.
Great energy from all of our students, and it's actually great to be back. So it's been a lot of fun. I will tell you that at home, I've been watching The Munsters. So, you know how I like to watch classic TV series on DVD, and I watch Happy Days. Not finished Happy Days, but I'm working on it. But I moved on to The Munsters. So this is a mid-60s series. You're familiar with the... Did you watch it?
I like The Munsters more than I like The Addams Family.
Yeah, I do too, actually. Yeah. But I think they're very different shows. They were compared...
Well, yes and no.
It is and it isn't. Yeah, of course, because they're both kind of about spooky families and scary families. But The Munsters, I find, is just about, like, everyday families. The Munsters are like every other family. They want to just be a successful American.
Yeah.
Herman is always trying new things. He works at the parlor, the funeral parlor is where Herman works, but he's always doing something different. Every episode is basically Herman tries to do something new, and it's not at all related to scary stuff. What I love about it are all the little nods to like the Universal monsters throughout. Basically, Grandpa is Count Dracula. That's the premise of it. And the rest of them are kind of like his family. And so they do make references to all the Universal monsters. Pretty much all of them have been referenced at this point. And I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I loved it too. Fred Gwynn as Herman Munster, and he's a legitimate, real actor in lots of movies and stuff. So sometimes I'll be watching a movie and going, who's that guy again? He looks so familiar. And then you look him up and you're like, oh, because he's Herman Munster. But he's good. He's a really good actor.
Oh, for sure. He's so many great roles. There's an episode where he gets, I can't remember, I think he gets struck by lightning or something, but he gets turned handsome, but they think he's ugly. Of course, they have an opposite aesthetic. So he gets turned. Basically, I think it was just an excuse for them to not put him in the makeup for an episode.
Yeah,
give him a break.
That must have been horrible.
But it's funny because he's actually a very handsome man. In his youth, when he was playing Herman Munster, he's super tall, but he's very handsome, and it was a great episode. So I'm really enjoying The Munsters, and I'll continue to talk about that. I am going to work my way up to. There's a movie on the DVD set. They made a made-for-TV a theatrical release film with the original cast, but they also had a movie recently directed by Rob Zombie, which I have not seen yet. Have you seen that one?
No.
Okay. So this is all leading up to me watching that movie at some point. Apparently, it's not very good.
No, I had a feeling it wouldn't be, and it might be a horrible way to end.
Might be.
But
I have to do it. I have to watch it all, right?
Yeah.
This week, though, we're going to talk about advertising and how it is basically killing the Canadian television industry, maybe all TV industries. But I feel like advertising is the problem here. So this is what I want to talk about.
Well, I think it's a partnership between the advertising and the media outlets.
Okay.
However, let me also say, I think I do a class once a year where I talk about, there's a book by Pamela Paul called, I don't know, it's just like 101 Things the Internet Took from Us.
Okay.
And so I do a class on that, and I say, like, who should we blame for the death of what the newspaper, which used to be how everybody got the news. And there's lots of there's blame to go around, including our own behavior, including the media outlets themselves, including technology and the tech companies and advertising, because the advertising dollars go where the eyeballs are, and internet's cheaper than advertising in paper. So I think that's advertising's biggest sin.
Yeah, but also it's because the nature of advertising has changed and it's evolved over the years. And I think part of the problem with these companies, and we're talking about in Canada, it's Chorus, Rogers, Bell, and is there another one? Or is that it? The 3? Pattison owns a lot of radio, but they don't own any TV. But those are the main big corporations that own all the TV stations in Canada, therefore all of the newsrooms in Canada. And that's the real problem, is it's a huge threat to journalism because they're laying off people all over the place and they can't make money. But I believe that their problem is their refusal to let go of their old system and adapt to new ones, because they're still pushing, first of all, they're still pushing cable TV, which is absolutely dying, and it's a matter of time before that's going to be gone altogether. But they're also they're still doing commercial breaks, 3 minutes of ads. Who's going to sit through that? Nobody. The only way that's going to get just untouched is if somebody forgets the TV's on and walks away, right? But that's not something that people like to sit through anymore. Just the nature of advertising is changing as well. Like the old school methods of ads and the old cheesy ads maybe don't work as well, so they have to kind of change that. But I really feel like they've made their own product undesirable. Nobody wants to buy regular TV or radio advertising or newspaper or any traditional media advertising anymore because it's so much easier and cheaper to do it online. That's the big problem.
Yeah, that is a big problem, but it's also audience numbers and targeting ability with media outlets, and the old school traditional media is the classic. We deliver a shotgun blast, and we don't know if we've hit half of our target. Is really what it's about. And you can target people more specifically and get real-time results by advertising online. So it's something that you could see coming. But I should also say, I don't notice it all the time, but I've noticed CTV does now do content marketing in its newscast.
In what way?
The new Mazda just came out. Look at this.
Did they do this in the news? Yeah?
Yeah, it's done. It's disguised as a report. It has a little flag like paid for by, paid for by whatever. And I know CBC has took it on the chin for doing the same thing at certain points. So I don't think it, like now CBC has released
this is just
a content marketing guide about what they will and won't do.
So this is, I don't think this is going to work either, because that just waters down their main product, right? Then people start to doubt everything.
Can't trust the news.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So how much of the news is paid for? How much of it is actual news? So that's a problem. The other problem, of course, are these self-serve options, which we were talking about yesterday when we were talking about this episode. And what we're going to say is that you can go on, and Google and Facebook are the primary offenders. That basically all of Canadian media are blaming outside foreign companies for taking away all the advertising dollars. That's how they're putting it. So Google and Facebook are the ones taking away all that, because they just allow people to create their own ads. It's like you log in, you pick the images, you write the copy, you do everything, you submit it, they approve it, and it runs. And you don't need anybody else involved in it. You just can do it yourself. And that has resulted in a whole bunch of horrible advertising all over the place, including YouTube. Yeah. Is another place you see this all the time. And so that's a bit of an issue, because the traditional media won't do that, right? If you went to a TV station, you could not just create a horrible ad and run it. They have standards, right? They want to make sure all the advertising is of a certain quality, and so you don't see those crappy little ads on the big stations. And I noticed that similarly when I go to the streaming services of those stations like CBC Gem. All of the ads on CBC Gem are well-produced, high-budget ads made like cars, Pampers is a big advertiser. That's what I get anyway, and that kind of stuff. So they're all high-end ads.
They are, but they're inserted awkwardly into the content. And they repeat too often.
Yeah, and that's because they're based on the old system of you would be like one ad amongst a 3-minute ad break. So you've got like 5 other ads in there, and so you're changing and you're like taking interest in the different ones. So that whole thing has changed. Yeah, it's not a 3-minute break anymore. By the way, on I know you hate the way YouTube does their ads.
74-second unskippable ad, new on my Apple.
So that's
TV.
a minute 14. That's not bad. That's 2 30 seconds and 2 6 seconds basically.
Right. And maybe you can skip one if you're lucky. But if you miss it, you're screwed.
Yeah, and then, and I noticed it's changed. So, and you were angry because they were saying skip, and when you pressed it, it would just go to the next ad.
Right. You're not skipping the ad messages. You're skipping the ad you're on.
Okay, so I don't know if it's happened for you, but pay attention to that next time you do it, because it's now changed to next. So now you go next.
I saw that. Yeah.
So next ad, so you can skip to the next ad, but you still have to watch another ad. That's the newest development in YouTube.
I also think I noticed that my Apple TV YouTube app is far worse than if I were to watch YouTube on my phone.
Interesting.
Because I think people don't, like when you're on your phone, you're like, I don't have time for this shit.
Yeah.
But on the Apple TV app, like the ads are just like, I've never seen anything like it. And it got worse. It got worse when school started in September, like in the beginning.
So a lot more products being advertised, a lot more ads?
Just numbers and length of ads and the ability to skip them.
Okay. I think 74 seconds sounds like a lot, but it's actually, it's way longer for a 3-minute break, right? Yeah. So that's still a shorter commercial break than the traditional television.
But I think also what you're pointing out, like the self-service ad platforms also means that now you see far more ads that look like they're PowerPoint presentations.
Absolutely.
Because that's how you build a self-service ad. And so you'll see like Assiniboine Credit Union, the music is playing.
Generic music, and just some text on the screen.
Text, photos, voiceover, bad voiceover.
Sometimes AI voiceover, I hear, like that really bad tone when you hear on TikTok all the time. Yeah. Like they're deliberately doing that, or maybe they're not deliberately, but they're just using the AI to say whatever the text is. Yeah, that's awful. That's what I call low quality advertising, right? And there's so much more of it. And almost all of it is created by the businesses themselves.
That's right.
So they're taking away the middleman, and that's leading to worse advertising, which basically leads to everybody thinking less of advertising and all advertising not working as well.
They think that's what advertising is, and that's why I need, like, what I'm doing right now in my advertising classes is saying, like, you didn't come here to learn how to write hacky ads. You came here to learn how to do it right, and so we're going to do that. But it really, you have to dispel, like, the idea that the best ads don't offend anybody, or that they're safe, or that they're just corporate talking points. Like, that's horrible, and that's what you pretty much. Like, and you get the occasional one with a creative idea that doesn't work, like the lazy boy. Here's to the lazy people.
I kind of like that one.
But it's not quite there.
Yeah,
like it's almost there, where it's like it's a very good concept, which is we're saluting lazy people for being such heroes, like real men of genius or something. And so you have them in their lazy boy, and they're like, "Look at me, look what a hero I am." But the voiceover is like, ha, ha, we know, this is funny, ha, ha, ha. Like the ad's trying too hard to say this is funny. Have the courage to run that ad campaign and not wink at like run the campaign. Let's celebrate the lazy. We're all at home watching TV.
Yeah.
When we see this ad, I'm like the people in the ad, like, show me how I could be enjoying myself.
I want to mention that it's not just smaller brands and businesses doing this. Like, I've seen some big brands make some pretty bad ads. There was one for like I think it was Little Caesars mac and cheese bites. Did you see that one?
I've definitely seen ads for the brand, but not for that product.
Okay, so this was like new Little Caesars mac and cheese bites, and then you see this, no way, like literally the voice saying, no way, wow. Like that was part of the ad. I'm like, that is horrible. That's just a bad ad. But they're just running that. There's also one for Shoppers Drug Mart where it shows a woman, and the woman's like miming out whatever it is saying. She's like, celebration. And she goes, and she does like a little, like a thing, like a mime, but it's really awkward and like staged, and it seems weird, but it's a certain, it looks like almost like a different style of ad from a different country. Like you would see something in Japan or something like that. Like that's what it reminded me of it, but it's very, very strange.
No more happy dances and ads, including Jack Ryan, actor.
Oh God, that one just started, that pissed a bunch of people off.
Because they hired a name actor for easily $1 million or more and licensed Taylor Swift. Oh my God!
Instead of hiring a Canadian actor, which they are currently freezing out the Canadian actors. That's what I heard about that one.
Yeah, they for some reason they can't find the money to pay Canadian actors. But the guy who John Krasinski.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim from The Office.
And licensing Taylor Swift, for God's sakes. And it's a very bland ad.
It's a horrible ad.
It's bland. And how many times have we seen the happy dance now?
Yeah.
Like 1 billion times. No more happy dance. No. Like it's time to move on. And also thinking that a celebrity and licensed music is an idea.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
No.
There was nothing to that concept. It makes me hate Rogers more.
Me too.
I canceled my Rogers subscription because, no, just joking. I did cancel. I did, but I switched to a cheaper plan. But yeah, it was awful, and they got a lot of blowback. I think that if John Krasinski had known, like there was this whole issue going with ACTRA where there's a dispute with the union, the actors union, so they're just not bothering to hire Canadian actors and going with American actors. And it's not just that. There's another one. There's the Bank of Montreal ads with the guy from New Girl. Right? He is an American actor. And there's another one where a guy from Buffy the Vampire Slayer is in it. So there's a lot of American actors taking Canadian jobs. All of this stuff basically to say that there's a lot of crappy advertising out there. And I think the solution needs to be government interference.
Come on.
Well, I do think like they have to, like, first of all, like the businesses and the industry has had a chance to figure it out for a long time now. They've known this problem has been happening. They refuse to change. The cable companies refuse to give up on their product. They're not transitioning to online. They're still trying to push this cable TV thing, which is absolutely a dead product. And so they're just refusing to look into the future. And so I think the government has to force them and also take some of the bigger companies like Facebook and Google to task as well, because I think those companies take too much of the overall ad revenue. Mm-hmm. Like I think Google, I looked it up before we came on and said on average, Google takes 45% of the revenue for YouTube videos. So a YouTuber will make 55% of the ad revenue, but I think it should be more. Like, I mean, what is Google doing other than like they made the website and it exists? There's not a lot of ongoing stuff they need to worry about. They should give most of that money to the person. And I think the government has to force Google to do that.
Google invented the idea of taking money for something that should be free, including search. So I mean, the world we live in is Google and Facebook playing, now that they've taken all the content and got everybody to use their platforms, it's now, and Google's giving a drop in the bucket to Canadian media.
That's a token, and it's not working very well.
No, I know it's a token, and I know I even hear like mom and pop media outlets complaining about it, and you know, like if that's the case,
it's not enough.
No, it's not enough. But they did it. They played fair with the government, which Facebook didn't do. Facebook now you just can't share news on there, which has made a lot of things that you would normally do on Facebook impossible, like just sharing an article with an interested group can't be done.
I think it's made Facebook a worse product.
Oh, it is.
It really absolutely has. Now that just means that Facebook doesn't care about Canada, because this is the only place where that happens. They've just limited news in Canada. But yeah, it makes Facebook worse, and I think less people are using Facebook because of that. Because that's where they used to, if you would ask somebody 5 years ago, where do you get your news from? They would say Facebook, and now that's not true. So that's an issue for sure.
Yeah, it's not true. And the indication, I read somewhere that they're thinking of doing the same thing in the U.S., like just stopping the news. Like, we're the test market.
I guess so.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, good. Like, people are just posting their dog photos or whatever. That's fine. But no news. Like, news just depresses people. We want to cheer them up with all the personal bullshit that people. And actually, they don't want to cheer us up. They want us to see conflict, and personal conflict works on Facebook.
That's true. But what kind of got me thinking about this was we had a little work get together before we started the year at our boss's house, a little barbecue. I was speaking with our colleague James Turner, who's a journalism instructor, and I was talking about how much I really enjoy all the different CBC TikToks. And there's a CBC for every city, CBC local, like Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg. Every city has its own local CBC TikTok. And they all post their stories there. They all all the content that they would put on their newscast or on their website also goes on TikTok, and they edit to make sure that it's like vertical video. And they've done some really good stuff, like especially the Vancouver newsroom has done some really good work on TikTok as far as creating interesting, newsworthy content that people that will inform me. And it is, I would say that if you were to ask me the question, where do you get most of your news? I would say TikTok for me, because that's where I find things out. And I can certainly Google and look up news and read articles, but I can watch a video that can summarize a story and tell me everything I know in 1 minute on TikTok. So James's response is, how much money do you think they're making from that post? And I'm like, probably not a lot, especially in Canada, because TikTok is a bit sketchy about that whole thing. Their whole creator program and how much people get paid.
Nobody's clicking through on TikTok.
Who cares if it's clicking through? That's what I'm saying. You don't need to click through. Nobody. That's the problem, is all the news cares about are links and click-through stuff, and nobody will click through.
Because that's where the ad sits.
No, but the thing is, TikTok is already making money off of that view because of its ad settings.
Right.
So TikTok should be giving part of its revenue to CBC. More of its revenue to CBC.
Why shouldn't TikTok be giving you some revenue for doing your posts?
It should be. Yes, I have 14,000 subscribers. I should be making money off of my posts, but I'm not, because I don't. In Canada, you have to have more than 50,000 subscribers.
So here's what I'm getting at. What makes a media outlet so special on TikTok? Because and let me just lay this out, because my complaint about what I see from the media on TikTok, and definitely CBC does some good work. Washington Post does stuff specifically for TikTok. BBC posts clips and stuff, and I find it all useful in its own way. But then I also see, I think it was the Winnipeg Free Press, I'm going to show you what it's like for a journalist to go review a concert. And you're like, you know what? We all do that. We all show up. We all go through the door. We all record video. We all tweet stuff. You sit down and then you write something for the paper. But the experience isn't special. Like, the thing that you think you're showing us is an inside look into what makes you so special. but it's not special. Like, that's old school.
Okay.
That's like, look, you can remember Brian Williams? Listen to our meetings in the morning that we have at NBC. Who cares?
Yeah.
It looks like every meeting at every office across North America.
Yeah.
It's not different.
Well, I think that's on the outlet. Whoever posted that probably maybe should have thought twice. But I think that you do have to define news organizations. You have to categorize them and say, identify as a news organization. That's what they've already done. Like, in Canada, all news organizations have identified as such, and they almost all of them receive like money from the government. They all get some kind of kickback. So that's already been established. So once they've established that, you can register with TikTok and say, or YouTube or whatever platform you're on, I'm a news media outlet. We should be getting this much, and the government would mandate this. news media outlets need to get this percentage of the profit from revenue or revenue from advertising, and that's mandated, and it's more than the platform gets. It's more than TikTok gets. That's the way it should be. It really should be that way. I'm sorry that I know that there's shareholders, TikTok shareholders, all that other crap, but I think the money needs to go back to the outlets to pay for the content, right? And that would help everybody. If that was the case, everybody, not just media outlets, but everybody would benefit because the money would go up. TikTok would be like, okay, fine, we won't make as much money, but we'll still make money, and then everybody's happy.
But maybe, but it's my understanding that Google will only provide the money to news outlets that makes their news available through Google. So they get rid of the paywall. At that point,
the paywall has failed. The paywall has failed.
Yes.
Unless you're the New York Times, there's no point in having a paywall.
So is that to say that the Winnipeg Free Press, with its precious paywall, has not taken them up on that deal? Has not taken the Google money?
Probably.
That's
what they should drop the paywall and take the money, but Google should be forced to make them pay them more.
So then TikTok should mandate, if they're giving them the money, then they need to mandate the kind and frequency of content produced by the outlet, maybe.
Not frequency necessarily, because
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, it's like you post and you make the more you post, the more money you would make because you make money off the views, right? So that's how that's measured.
Then there's the other side of this, which is, why don't media outlets advertise?
Outside of their own platforms?
Yes.
Yeah, that's just stupid. That's because they don't think, they think nobody else, they think they're the best. They all think they're the best media outlet and everybody else sucks. That's the absolute mentality of those places. And they don't want to give their money to anybody else as well. Not even like an outdoor, what baffles me is they don't advertise on billboards more, because that seems to be an easy ad spot right there. But yeah, they don't want to give money to those other companies because those, like in Winnipeg, Pattison owns the billboards, but they also own a bunch of the radio stations here. So Bell, which also owns a bunch of the radio stations, doesn't want to give any money to Pattison. That's the problem.
Right. I mean, that's always been a problem. And if media outlets actually joined forces, but I think
they hate each other.
Yeah,
they really do. I wasn't even allowed to report one time at
Yeah.
CTV. I wasn't allowed to report the name of a radio DJ on a different station that wasn't owned by our station. Even though it was the story, he was involved in the story. It was this whole thing about Smitty's and blah, 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 and someone called into the show. No, write up the article, but leave the part out about the morning show I had to do. Because they would not let me mention QX 104 in our article because it was another station owned by another company. That's ridiculous.
And the obsession with scooping.
Oh, that's also, don't get me started on that. That's just ridiculous as well.
Like, I scooped the other outlet. That is such an internal measurement.
Yeah.
That
nobody else has noticed that.
And the other thing is, it doesn't matter at all to the ultimate viewer. It doesn't matter.
Nobody knows who got who first.
No.
And you, by the way, you beat them by about 10 minutes. Like, does that matter? Like, it does not matter. I hate that. When everybody gets on me about that, this would happen at CTV, actually. Someone's like, okay, we got to get up before everybody else. I'm like, no, we don't. And I wouldn't post it. I would deliberately wait, and they would get, like, the reporter would get kind of antsy. You're going to put that up? I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it. But I would not, because I'm like, you can just wait. I'm sorry. I've got other things to do.
Yeah, like it's one thing if it's an earth-shattering, like, right? If it's huge,
sure. If it is actual breaking news, then sure. But their opinion, or my job is to judge whether or not it is breaking news.
It can be anything. It can be common knowledge, the thing that's being reported, and the reporter's still like, for some reason, the analytic that matters the most to them is I beat the other.
Yes.
My competitor at the other.
Well,
thing.
And there's a lot of repetitious, like, reporting. Everyone's reporting on the same things, what happens. But I think ultimately, if the problem is they're not making enough money, their own system is failing, completely failing. Radio and TV advertising is not, like, people do not want to buy it other than big brands who are it's really just big brands making sure that all their bases are covered, right? That's who's still buying TV. Okay, so their system is failing. They're not willing to adapt the new system. The audience is shifting regardless. The audience will always go where the audience wants to go, and it's just up to the companies. But I do believe that we will see some of these companies. I predict, I'm going to say this on the podcast, Evanoff will be the first media company to shut down. Evanoff Radio, I think, will shut down because it's not a very big company. It's very small, just in Ontario and Manitoba. And I cannot see how they could be making enough money to stay afloat through their stuff.
I think for major news outlets, global,
Yeah,
I'm worried about.
Chorus is in trouble. You're right. Chorus
Yeah.
is in. I think they're in creditor protection or something like that.
Yeah.
So yes, they are in trouble. My frustration with Chorus is that they have a good product. They have their Stack TV thing, which I think is actually a good idea. It's like taking a cable TV package and just putting it online. But I don't know. They're not promoting enough. They've got it tied to Prime for some reason. Like they should be everywhere with that, not just on Prime.
Yeah.
And yeah, the same kind of thing. They're just not like, they still have all their big commercial breaks, all their ads. I used to work for CGOB, which is owned by the same company. That's the biggest complaint about CGOB forever, has been too many ads, but they cram it in there because it's a popular station and they can charge a lot for them. That's been the problem.
Canadian media is beholden to some of these big companies, because I remember reading in the Globe and Mail, the TV critics said one episode of Mrs. Maisel would fund the entire Canadian TV industry for a year.
Oh my God.
Like, because we're just such a small market.
Yeah.
And in the US there's more money flying around.
Yeah.
And there's more there and the innovation and things like that, because let's face it, we just are a smaller population with not as much money. So we've always, one way or another, been victim of the 500-pound gorilla to the south of us, and it's and that's part of this.
Yes.
Is how is a little Canadian media company, and even if it's big by our standards, it's a little media company, how's it going to compete with like Amazon Prime?
Now that leads perfectly into my next point, which is going to be, now what was the first strategy that the Canadian government came up with to combat the American media? To make sure that Canadian content was posted.
The CRTC.
Yeah, but what do they do? I'm asking you. You can say it. I know what the answer is, but CanCon. Talk about CanCon.
Oh, Canadian content. Well, that's what when I say CRTC, I think it goes without saying.
Well, it doesn't go without saying, because the CRTC does a lot of other things, but they mandate Canadian content.
Yeah.
They mandate that all Canadian outlets have to publish 33%. I believe it varies, but it's usually around 30% of their content has to be Canadian produced, and they determine that through a fun acronym called MAPLE. MAPL.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't know this? Oh, yes. This is how
I've never heard of Maple. No.
Maple, it's Canadian. Of course, it's Maple.
Maple syrup?
Yes. MAPL. No, there's no E on the end, but MAPL. So those four categories: the musician, music, the artist, the producer, or the lyrics. Any two of those four things are Canadian, done by a Canadian person, then it is Canadian content, right? So not all Justin Bieber songs are Canadian content.
Or Bryan Adams, as we learned. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of different stuff that kind of doesn't fall, but they do cheat it quite a bit, and I'm sure Bryan Adams, you can play any Bryan Adams and people would say, okay, fine, that's Canadian content.
Sorry, producer, what was L again?
L was lyrics.
Okay.
So if somebody else writes the lyrics, and it's not a Canadian it's only two out of those four things.
Give me Maple one more time. Music,
artist, producer, lyrics.
Okay, got it.
So I think that we should have some sort of similar thing for advertising. We should determine, and not those four things, obviously, but we should determine some criteria by which all Canadian advertising must have Canadian hands on it in some way. It's a way to ensure that Google and Facebook hire people in Canada to do the work. It's a way to get rid of the automation. I think they should. I know that nobody's going to want to do that, but they should get rid of, or they should at least build some other steps into the automation so that there's a person looking at it at some point. But I do think that if Canada said, okay, all Canadian advertising must be whatever the four things, maybe I should come up with this and actually suggest it to somebody. But they come up with this, and then so basically, like, it's the writer, it's the voiceover artist, it's like whoever, the actor in the commercial, like some part of it has to be Canadian so that it is produced in Canada for Canadians, and we're not getting all these weird ads from all over the place and all kinds of strange, there's all kinds of crazy stuff out there, right?
Can you mandate? I understand how you can mandate Canadian content. I don't understand how you can mandate Canadian advertising.
How not? Why not?
I got to think about this. I'm not sure. It's a new and rich idea that I need to consider, because isn't it the advertiser's problem to make their ad seen as opposed to...
But they don't know how to do it.
No, they don't.
Right? That's the problem. The Canadian government has to force them and say, okay, you need to hire somebody to show you how to do this. That's what I'm saying. That's what the CanCon rule will do. It will force them to bring somebody else into that. I have to, like, I'm just kind of...
I know. It's interesting.
I have to, I'm going to work on this. I'll come back to it, but I'm going
to think about this too.
I might write a letter to somebody. I might write a letter to the CRTC, I think. I've written the CRTC before. I can write them again.
I have too. And it's mostly about show me American ads during the Super Bowl. But And we won once, and then we lost.
I wrote to the CRTC to complain about Funny 1290, and I said to them, "How can this possibly? Because in radio, you have to have a certain amount of hours of content, right? You have to create. That's why we have morning shows, and so you have to have locally produced content. And Funny was just clips of comedians with no live announcers at all. So I emailed the CRTC and said, how can this be okay for there to be no live announcers and da-da-da-da? And they basically emailed me back and said, because it's an AM station, we gave them a pass. Because it's AM, 1290 AM, nobody cares about AM anymore. We're just going to let them do it. And that's basically what the attitude is now. But that just makes it worse for everybody else. Even if it is AM, it just makes it worse for everybody else.
That sounds like the emails I get back from City Hall with my complaints.
Yeah.
Like they're all very nice.
Oh, yes.
They're very cordial. They're very nice. But in the end, is my life different as a result of getting this email? Never.
No. The email just basically said, this is the way it is and tough.
Right.
Live with it.
Right.
They're not going to do anything about it is what they're telling me.
No, they're going to find a nice way to tell you they're not going to do anything about it. And they're going to give you, and it's going to be in corporate speak.
All right.
Let's relive this.
Okay, we'll come back to it. Yes.
Right, because during our podcast, you called for government intervention. And I was like, gee, I didn't see that coming. So I don't even know how I think about that. And then at the end where you mandated for Canadian ads, that's interesting. I don't know. I gotta think about that too.
I don't know.
There's
something to it. Yeah. And so maybe I'll talk to some other friends in the advertising industry about it and see what they say. They're not going to want it. Like nobody wants government regulation, but it's necessary in a lot of cases, and you can see a lot of cases in which it is. Like just look at the telecom industry and how much they used to screw us over with all their freaking 3-year contracts and all that stuff. The government intervened and stopped all that stuff, right? So
even you're reminding me that every year I teach the students the alcohol guidelines for advertising in Canada and provincially. And they've seen 10,000 ads that break those rules because they're from the U.S. How can you I don't know of a system where you can we're imagining something that doesn't exist, which is a world where we only see Canadian ads.
Right. Yeah. So we do have to live in, and honestly, it's not just the U.S. These days, it's every other country. Like we can access anything, right?
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, we're gonna have to leave it there because you have a class to go to. Before we go, though, I do want to recommend something. I'm gonna recommend, as I saw this on Tubi, and I'm kind of going through there and trying to find these films that I've never seen before. And so I saw on Tubi this week. It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
Oh yeah,
for the first time. I never watched it before. Oh my God, this is such a good movie.
And the celebrities who show up in that film are mind-boggling.
Yeah. When you look at that cast and see, oh my God, they got absolutely everybody involved in comedy at the time was in that movie.
And Spencer Tracy and like big time movie stars.
The Spencer Tracy part, I was just like, what? He's just sitting around in his office the whole time. Like he does stuff at the end that's interesting, but
he didn't really want to be in it.
Right, but a lot of his scenes are in one room, right, which is hilarious. Yeah. But it's a great movie. I was totally shocked. I did not expect to like it this much, and the pacing of it is incredible. The comedy is hilarious.
It's a long film.
But you keep track of it. They recap it halfway through. I love the recap. It's like, okay, here's where we're at, and they got to get Spencer Tracy up to speed. So they go through. Here's where this person is. Here's where this person is. It's just such a great movie, and I so loved it. It's a new favorite for me. I'm gonna buy it. Mad World.
I love that film. Sometimes it just happens to be on TV. That's one of the ones I have to stop and watch it when it's. And that's a bad one to stop and watch because it's so long. But I love it. But I always forget who's in it.
Yeah.
And then they show up and you're like, oh my God, like what's happening?
Yeah.
Like it's exciting.
Yeah. It's very cool for me, like as somebody who, when I was a kid, a lot of those people were a lot older, they were like kind of aged out of the industry, and like Jonathan Winters and that kind of stuff. So seeing them young and in their prime, that's also a lot of fun.
I know,
right?
I love it. Yeah. Okay, my quick recommendation, The English Teacher on Disney Plus. It's an FX show. It's like an edgier Abbott Elementary for high school.
Okay.
And it's just good fun. And it's like this guy's trying to cope with like last year the kids were all woke. It's come full circle, and they're not woke anymore. Now what am I supposed to do? And it's sort of like struggling in that sort of area.
Okay.
And it's just the first 2 episodes are up on Disney Plus, and FX can be a little edgier. Mm-hmm. And I just got a real kick out of those. I laughed out loud at certain things, and maybe because we're teachers, we like it more than anybody. Sure. But it's a great show about school. Another great show about school where lots of great shows have happened.
Yeah, Abbott Elementary is really good too. Okay, I'll check that out.
I love Abbott Elementary. Yeah, and that's perfect for the grade school kids. This is perfect for the high school.
So you think my kids would like it? My kids are in high school.
Oh, I think it's pretty good. I
Yeah?
think it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Sounds
think
good.
the main character is a gay man.
Okay.
And so the show starts and he's in trouble because he's kissed his partner in front of a class.
Uh-oh.
A quick kiss in front of the class. And it's like, is that okay? Is that not okay? That doesn't even matter. Does anybody care? Are the kids supportive? Are they not? And it's fun. And the guy playing the principal like goes down in history as one of the great school principals.
Oh, that's
for
fun.
a guy who just has been so manipulated by politics in his life that
love it.
he's just stressed out.
Oh, it sounds like
He's
fun.
stressed out all the time. It's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Media Nerds. I'm Dan Vedabunker.
I'm Kenton Larson. Don't let the door hit you on the ass.